Hi everyone, welcome to Educon Community Java interview series. So, in the last lecture, we have discussed about the OOPS basic concepts related interview questions. So, we have discussed the part one part till this question number 13. So, today we will discuss from this 14 like what is the difference between the late binding and the early binding. So early binding means the static binding, and it happens basically at compile time. Anything which is static, that will be the compile time. You already know, like for the polymorphism, what is the static polymorphism? The that will be early one, and that will be the compile time polymorphism. So static things means the compile things, like compile time things, and the dynamic things means the runtime things. That's why the dynamic polymorphism is also known as the runtime polymorphism. In the same way, here early binding is the static binding, which is happened at the compile time, and here the method calls are resolved using the reference type information like static, private, or final methods, and that is basically faster executions. That's why the early. So through the early binding, like what's the result for the early binding, or why we will use the early binding? So here basically method calls are resolved using the reference type of information. Next is late binding. That is basically happened in the runtime, and here methods call resolved based on the actual object type, like overridden methods, and it is slower execution but more flexible, allowing polymorphic behavior. So you got it, the difference between the early binding and the late binding. Okay. So now the next question is, can we overload and override the static methods? So static methods can be overloaded as they are resolved at the compile time based on the method signature. So like only the different method signatures will be there, right? But for the overriding, that cannot be overridden because they are resolved statically at the compile time. Okay, so not dynamically at runtime. Clear? So static methods cannot be overridden because they are resolved statically at compile time, not dynamically at runtime. And overriding means that the dynamic nature. Okay, so that's why we cannot do the overriding for the static methods. So next is hmm, so what is the constructor overloading? So constructor overloading occurs when a class has multiple constructors with different parameter lists. Okay, somehow in the default constructor there are no parameters. In the parameterized constructor there can be one parameter, two parameters, three parameters, like that. So there can be multiple constructors with different parameter lists, and this allow creating objects with different initializing values. Okay. Okay. So what is this keyword? So this keyword refers to the current object instance. So it is used to differentiate between the instance variable and local variables when they have the same name, or to call the current objects methods. Okay, so that's why we will use the this keyword. So this keyword basically refers the current object instance. In this way we can differentiate between the instance variables and the local variables, like this dot something like that, this dot variable name, in that way. And super, so super keyword is refers to the parent class and is used to access the parent class fields and methods when they are overridden or shadowed by the subclass. So call the parent class constructor from the subclass. Next is, what is constructor changing in Java? So constructor chaining. So constructor chaining refers to the calling one constructor from another. Okay, so we are suppose one constructor is already there. So through the another constructor, we are calling the first constructor. That is basically the constructor chaining, and that can be done in the same or different classes. So uh, uh, usually we do that with the this and super. So this to call the another constructor in the same class, and super is called the constructor from the parent class. So this is always the present situation. Okay, so through the this construct we can call another constructor in the same class, and through the super method we can call a constructor from the parent class. Okay, so can we overload the main method? Yes, obviously we can overload the main method, but the Java virtual machine will always call the main method with the signature public static void main string argument args. Okay, where the main method passes that string array of arguments, JVM basically will always call the that main method. Okay, so there are two important questions already I have discussed, like can we overload or override the static methods? That's the one important question. So you know, right, static done by statically. So we can overload the static methods because this is done in the compile time, right, statically. But overriding means what? Dynamical at runtime. So you cannot override the static methods. And in the same way, you have seen that main method here is mainly static. Okay, it should be static. Otherwise, we need to create instance for that. But as it's static, we need we can easily overload it and something like that. So and we need not to create an instance for that. That's why it's static. Okay, and as it's static, so we also can overload the main method, right? So overloaded main methods must be called explicitly from this main method. So we can overload the main methods, and those overloaded main methods must be called explicitly from this main method. Okay, but the important thing is that the Java virtual machine will always call the main method with this signature only. Correct? Now, can a final method be overloaded in Java? Yes, a final method can be overloaded, but it cannot be overridden. Why? Because it is marked as final. So when it is final, we know that it prevents any subclass from modifying its behavior. Okay, so that's why final method will able to overload, like we can able to overload the final method, but we cannot do the override because it is marked as final. So it prevents any subclass from modifying its behavior, right? So what is the is a and has a relationship? So is a relationship, this represents the inheritance. So if class A extends the class B, then A is a type of B. Like, so for example, dog is an animal. So dog extends animal, like class dog extends class animal, like that. But has a, that's basically composition or aggregation. So if class A has a reference to an object of class B, then A has a B. Like car has an engine. ठीक है ठीक है तो car has a reference to an object like engine. ঠিক আছে তো that's why this is the has a relationship. So whenever if class A has a reference to an object of class B, okay, then it will be has a relationship. So basically that's represents the composition or aggregation. Correct. Now what is stronger association, composition or aggregation? So composition is a stronger form of association compared to aggregation. In composition, the content object cannot exist without the container object. So you think that in a school, room cannot exist without school, right? So that's I can say as the composition. Or you can see like in the car, without engine, car has no value. That can be composition. Okay, but aggregation means the content object can exist independently. So there is no tight dependency between the content object and the container. So like in the department and teacher. So some teacher and dependent and department, they are not like depending on each other properly, like not totally dependent. Like if one teacher will go from one department, then this with the same subject, the same another teacher can come there and can take the class. So that teacher and department can be the aggregation type of relationship. But without wheels, car, or without engine, car cannot run. Okay, so car and engine and car or wheel, those things are composite relationship. Okay, how is OOPS different from the procedural programming? So OOP is object based and focuses on objects, while procedural programming is function based. Next, OOP encapsulates data, while procedural uh, like pro function gramming exposes it. M- Basically, through the procedural programming, we can expose the data. So that's why we'll always say like object-oriented programming language is more secure than the procedural programming. That's why in banking sectors and any like secure things like any transaction process or something like that, they are mainly we use the object-oriented programming languages because those things are very secure, and we need to make secure when that valuable transaction will be happened or something like that. So now OOP follows the bottom up approach, while procedural programming follows a top down approach. Now OOP is easier to modify, extend and maintain, while procedural programming can become complex and hard to maintain as the program grows. And that's why for the development projects in industries, we always prefer to use the object oriented programming languages. So when you will read about the solid principles, there also you will find that uh, preferably the OOPS concepts mainly follow that solid principles. It will be hard to manage the solid principles with procedural programming. Now, OOP provides better code reuse opportunities through the inheritance and polymorphism. So these features are there in the procedural programming languages. Those things are not there. Okay, so when you will compare between the OOPS and the procedural programming, always think about those four pillars. What are those four pillars? The first one is inheritance, then is the abstraction, then is the polymorphism, and then is the encapsulation. With these four only, we can already cover up the difference between those two types of programming languages. Clear? So if you have any questions or any doubts, then you can just comment down in the comment section. And if you have also any other questions, then also we can discuss later. Thanks for watching it.